Hello and welcome to another episode of The Scientist Hay Farmer. This time it's Tool Time Edition, one of my favorite kinds. Today we're going to be back into automotive restoration mode, which is something else I love. We're going to be talking about sanding blocks. Specifically, kind of a little internet buddy of mine has come up with what he thinks is the best sanding block in the world. So I bought a set and we're going to put it to the test and see. So let's get started. What we have here are black diamond flexible sanding blocks. So we're just going to start here with the package. And I've got a DuraBlock, one of my DuraBlocks conveniently located next to it for a comparison. So overall, it comes in a very nice premium looking package. And I've already told him, I'm like, it's so pretty, but I don't like the white because it's going to look terrible when it gets dirty in my shop. It already has. So if we open it up, he's got a couple stickers in there for your toolbox. He's got a personalized letter, nice touch. But then inside, these are the blocks themselves. So there is a short block and a long block. So let's take them out and actually look at their content. So the short block was designed to be ergonomic and fit nicely into your hand, which I'm not gonna lie, they are actually quite comfortable. There are 3 holes in the ends of them, which is where some stiffening rods will go. We'll talk more about those later. And then there is an adhesive of something like plexiglass. I don't know that that's what it is, but it's a very hard, flat surface that uses a very strong industrial adhesive to mount to this rubber. So I would say if there were going to be one failure point on this block that I could see happening down the line, it would be this coming unadhered from the rubber. But since these are new and I haven't actually used them yet, we won't judge, we'll just keep an eye on it. Now there are 3 different size holes, and then the stiffening rods are in here, and there are actually 2 different size diameters. There's 2 little ones on the outside and 1 big one on the inside. Now the idea is we're gonna put the big one in the middle. You can add different amounts of tensioning rods to increase your flexibility. You can add all 3 to have it very rigid. You could have just one in the middle, or you could have the 2 on the outside. So if I just kind of put this on a surface like this short one I actually don't find to be super flexible already. Let's see if I can kind of bend it. So I mean, it definitely does bend, but it does take a lot to bend it, and my concern would be if I had it on a panel, the amount of force I would have to be exerting on it to actually bend it would be quite a bit. And typically when I'm block sanding, I only like the weight of the block to be doing the sanding, and I don't want to be pushing down on that, especially if you're doing a door panel or some kind of large open panel where the panel can actually be pushed down while you're blocking it. One other notable thing about these are, even though this one's quite small, it is quite heavy. I think this piece here is actually heavier than my longest DuraBlock. I don't know if this is my 14 or 16 inch, I forget how long this one is. Next we have this bigger guy here. This is probably the one I'm going to be using the most, and it is actually quite flexible. You can see that there. So this is one that I'm going to be really keen to use. Look at that. And it's flexible just because it's longer. You know, you have more torque to help bend it. That's really going to be the case with anything. Again, its rods are down in here. So there are these ones all look like they are the same diameter, I think. Survey says yes. These ones are all the same diameter. Okay, so there we have it. This one is quite heavy. If I were to think there would be a weak spot in this, it would simply be the weight, especially if you're blocking a side panel. I could see these getting pretty fatiguing on the hands and the arms. But that's why we're going to do this evaluation. Let's find out. So the first thing that really stands out to me is just how smooth and clean this mounting surface for our sandpaper is once I took the protective liner off. So we are going to be using some Indasa, some of my favorite sandpaper. I'm going to be rolling 220 today. We're going to block sand some high build primer, which is Southern Polyurethanes SPI. I've got on a bumper of the 70 F250 that's currently getting a pretty little facelift. So let's get some of this stuck down and start sanding. Okay, I have got some 220 paper on here, which stuck really nice, by the way. However, I think I would not want to leave it sit on there too long because I would be afraid that that the adhesive might start to stick to that and not come up. And then I've got all 3 rods in there so we can have maximum tension, or not tension, maximum rigidity. So this is some kind of really heavy steel bumper that came on the back of that truck, and I don't think it's a factory deal, but it was really pitted, and I have done a little bit of filler work so we can get it blocked straight. This is as flat as you can be, so this is going to be a really easy test for this one today. I've already got some guide coat on there, so I'm going to do this with one hand, which isn't going to be as ideal with 2, but I'm going to be holding one on the camera, so let's just see how this goes. So I'm going to give it a little stop so I can use some with 2 hands, and then I'll come back and we'll look at this. Okay, so this is something I was afraid of. The adhesive really sticks to this, and it has been a real kind of a pain to get off. It doesn't really do this on my Durablocks because they get enough crap on there, like dust and stuff, and then stuff just doesn't quite stick. It just kind of peels off in a nice clean sheet. So alrighty, so if we look at this fender here, this has more of a contour, and that's more for what these blocks are built to do. So you can actually see I've got the bars pulled completely out of it, and the block, its weight actually makes it kind of bend in the middle. And so when I stick that onto this, it just it has enough weight that it just kind of sticks on there like a magnet and takes the contour of the panel. So that part looks like it would be nice for blocking. Now this is probably a little wide for the section I'm trying to block here, but I can see how it would work much better on a contour panel. So going back to this panel, this one wasn't actually such a great demo for that because it's really thick steel, and it had a lot of high spots and kind of ridges here from where things are welded to the back of it. And so I ended up having to just do a lot of this by hand. And if I was super picky, I would be doing some poly primer on this, but I'm not going to do that because this is a farm truck, and I don't want it, this is a farm truck bumper, and I don't want it to be too perfect. There's certain things like this dent in here we're going to keep because we do want it to kind of have a used look after all. So after all of that, what are the upsides and the downsides? Well, let's start with the downsides first. The first one I think is going to be the weight. These are quite heavy, And while I didn't block a super long time with them today, I can see that becoming fatiguing to the arms, especially if you're blocking the side of a panel. The second part would be this ultra slick hard surface here. The way my sandpaper adhesive backing stuck to it, and I'm using Indasa, so it's not like I'm using cheap sandpaper. That is going to be problematic and makes it a real pain to have to peel this off. Now, I like to leave paper on until it's bad, and so if I'm going to have to peel the paper off within a couple hours of using it, well, I think that's what you have to do so it doesn't stick on there. Third would be that I notice the sandpaper, when I'm sanding against this really hard surface, the sandpaper loads up really, really fast, and it gets packed in the sandpaper differently than it does when I sand with my DuraBlocks. When I sand with the DuraBlocks, I notice that the dust just kind of gets pushed around and spread everywhere, and it's not packed into the sandpaper, probably from the softer surface, but this sandpaper really does get loaded up against this hard backer in just a matter of a few seconds. What do I like about them? Well, the flexibility for one. You know, this is very flexible and much more flexible than the DuraBlocks. I don't find the DuraBlocks actually that flexible unless you bend them against their will. See this, just picking it up, it actually bends just from the sheer weight of it. You can see that. Second would be the ergonomics. You can't really tell it, but I will say this is extremely comfortable to handle, more so than I would have thought. And that was where a lot of the design angle went into this. I know Dean was wanting to create a very ergonomic block, and I do think he succeeded there. This feels great in your hand. The rubber is nice and soft. I will say it was extremely comfortable to sand with. And then the third thing would actually be the weight. I said that as a downside, but it has an upside as well, because with the weight of this, you just let its own weight sand. You don't need to push down on it. Just simply move the block back and forth across the panel and let the weight of the block itself do the cutting. So that will work great on large horizontal or otherwise flat panels. Again, you might get some fatigue on the vertical panels. So in summary, that is my appraisal of the Black Diamond blocks. My recommendation would be a buy for sure. I think you'll like them. I know I do. I don't see any reason not to if you are serious about doing good quality bodywork. I think I will especially begin to like these as I get into large panels like open bedsides, big quarter panels, roofs. That's where their true magic is going to come in. So hopefully this was helpful. Thanks for watching.